So 2026, what a year, huh? At the time of recording, it's only been a few days, but sometimes it just be like that. Well, my return to work has been an absolute roller coaster, and all my holiday relaxation was undone in about one day. So I'm happy to be talking about Arknights instead. So now we can look back at 2025 with our rose-colored glasses, and with those glasses firmly attached, we can talk about the wonderful events we got in the last year, from the sands of Sargon to the mountains of Yan. This year took us to all corners of Terra, and what was originally going to be the first video of the year, I would like to take a look back at what was a pretty great year for Arknights. Setting the record straight from the jump, we are only going to be talking about new events from last year. No reruns shall be covered, and will only be mentioned if relevant. Also, no gameplay events. It's only going to be events with some lore I can sink my teeth into, cause I can't imagine you want me to say CC sucks for each section. Also, most of these have been covered individually, so you won't be getting a complete summary of the event. All this video really is my collection of thoughts on each event. Starting off with the first event of the year and the global server's 5th anniversary, Adventure That Cannot Wait for the Sun. I still prefer the untranslated name, Inudi Harak Horket, but that aside, I think this event is pretty cool. The story it told, while simple, is pretty enjoyable and features two fairly compelling focus characters. It's a story about history, its importance, its legacy, and even how it affects us today. Although thankfully a mummy hasn't come back to punish us for our sins just yet. During the event, we follow Pepe and Narantuya on their wacky adventure through the sands of Sargon. The two are descendants of Lugal Sarkaz and Karandu Kagan, and while not possessing the same might and influence of those two, live up to them in their own way. While his incredible aura and strength might not have survived the last 1,000 years, Pepe still maintains the task of her ancestor, Lugal Sarkaz's daughter, as a historian, and does everything in her power to protect those she loves from harm, even if it is disguised as a blessing. Narantuya Arknights fulfills her legacy by continuing down the path of her Kagan quest. While not marching out to conquer all the land like her ancestor did, Narantuya is dedicated to ensuring all those who look to her for leadership and guidance are well looked after and cared for, even at the expense of her own wallet. Unfortunately, the Master Thief is a bit of a fail girl, and her get-rich-quick scheme of kidnapping a noble's daughter fails miserably when the aforementioned mummy protects Pepe and tries to kill her. Zubor is the antagonist of this event, being the embodiment of that ancient lineage that follows the two girls everywhere they go. Through his own journey to recover his memories, he puts in place a test for the girls that results in both living up to the legacy of their ancestors in their own way. Pepe strikes down the rampaging mummy to put a stop to his destruction of the city, and Narantuya sacrifices riches beyond her wildest dreams to protect people from harm. If you skipped this event when it first came out, I would certainly recommend that you change that during its rerun, which will be ending probably a day after this video goes up, or is already over. You might even come to really like the characters, even if one of them has sparked plenty of controversy. My lukewarm take is Hippogriff should add more people of color to the game. TT is a nice start, but I still want Enam. A Kazdelian Rescue requires much less of a conversation than the previous event. Not because it is bad, but because it is set up for IS5. So if you don't care about IS5, you can skip it, or just start reading IS5 without it. All you really need to know is Nymph is messing around with the revenants in Kazdel's furnace. What are revenants, I hear you asking, person I made up in my head? Just ghosts of Sarkaz's past, rejected by rock cancer. However, we're not here to talk about them. We are here to talk about Nymph. Nymph is a Jal girl from the Sarkaz homeland of Kazdel. Having been rebuilt after the war in Victoria, we follow her on our first real look at life in Kazdel. Outside of Babel, of course, but Babel had other things to worry about. After Wizardel ensures that the revenants within the furnace are scattered across the city, Kazdel is plunged into chaos, with the revenants infecting the minds of those they attach to. As such, Nymph is dispatched to put a stop to the situation. On her journey, she encounters new and familiar faces. Pole, a Sarkaz maintaining order between gangs, Best Sarkaz, Mudrock, whose golem has been infected by a revenant, Crowny Mantle, a fashion icon who decorated her outfit with a revenant, Kalacia, a lovely woman who ensured you were punished for plundering her home in IS4, and Tin Man, a Sarkaz revenant who made his way to Kazdel to reunite with his old friends. Through their power combined, they ensure that peace returns to Kazdel. and provide some stories for our angry revenants in the Furnace, which leads us directly into IS-5. Like I said earlier, this story isn't setting records and tells the setup to IS-5 in a really straightforward but interesting way, while giving us insight into the current state of Kazdel. If you are a Sarkaz enjoyer and haven't read it yet, it is worth your time. Nymph is also super cute, so that helps. Sarkaz's Furnaceside Fables, aka IS-5, is, as the name would imply, the 5th expansion of the Integrated Strategies game mode, and as far as I can tell, one that most people seem to be quite happy with. This roguelike takes us deep into the stories of Sarkaz history, from the adventures of Ijal to the end of the world as we know it. While technically just visions created by the Soul Furnace, they are more like windows into alternate realities, filled with their own history entirely unique to the one we know. In the quote-unquote canon ending, Nymph is interrupted before she can tell the Revenants about the world she has constructed for them. However, that is not what makes IS-5 so interesting. These different realities are fascinating. The second ending shows the results of Teresis and Teresa making peace with each other as twin kings of the Sarkaz. As such, Rhodes Island never existed, and it was Amia who was saved by Teresa instead of the Doctor. As such, they were never awakened, and so Amia would attempt to help those afflicted by Euripide herself. Their brief contact with On Terra allows the twins to see the girl that they loved one last time. In another world, the Sarkaz and Sancta are one, and Patriot stands as the eternal protector of the holy city of Kazdel. In another, Quailon, an ancient Sarkaz king, took his people east and managed to reach enlightenment, with all the Sarkaz becoming Anasa. However, none of these are the endings we care about or hype up IS-5 for. The final ending is one where the Sarkaz no longer exist. Amia is the ender of worlds, and the end to all of those within the Furnace's visions. In a world where Babel and Rhodes Island never existed and Kazdel has been annihilated, no Sarkaz remain, having been driven to extinction. Terra, however, never let go of that hate and turned it upon each other. The term Sarkaz became a label to justify genocide. As a doctor, Amia would seek to save those around her, but the war came for everyone. Amia is almost killed and survives by entering a sarcophagus. Within the sarcophagus, Originium consumes her, but Civilite Atona preserves her consciousness, awakening with the power of the Sarkaz king and absolute control over Originium. Using her might, she entombs her world in Originium, and within the visions of the Furnace, seals all the stories uncovered by Nymph too. She essentially becomes the most broken character in this game, even if it is only in the stories of a Sarkaz. She even manages to talk to the Doctor before the end, with their words to Amia being the ones to end the story of IS-5. Definitely worth looking into the story behind IS-5, cause it is certainly something to behold. Would most certainly recommend. Delicious On Terra is the Done Meshi collab. Laios, Marcel, Chilchuk and Senshi take a break from rescuing Fallon to get a culinary tour of the land of Terra. And the nicest thing I can say about it is that it feels like an adventure straight out of the first half of the anime. And if you have enjoyed Done Meshi, it is more than worth your time. However, as a collab, you're gonna have to go to YouTube for the story, cause it probably isn't coming back. But hopefully it does, cause I wouldn't mind a second collab with Done Meshi. So, what happens in this event? Not much, aside from our lovable cast getting a true adventure across Terra. From Columbia to Sargon, Iberia to Sami, they get around everywhere. More importantly, they get to try several different delicious delicacies from across Terra. Originium slugs and pancakes, High Priest soup, golden carrot stew, popcorn and ice cream, demon-infected kebabs, ice cream with Dusk's ink spirits, and of course a full course of seaborn. So yeah, they got around before ending up in Rhodes Island. Nothing much else to say about the event. You either like Done Meshi, or you won't get much besides a pretty solid adventure into Terran cuisine. Ending a grand overture is the climax to Siege's storyline in the aftermath of the Victoria Crisis. With the war over and the Size of Kings reforged, Siege is left with the unenviable task of putting the pieces back together. What Victoria requires isn't a new king, but a woman capable of leading the people with the mandate of the people. As such, as the new Speaker of Parliament, she begins slowly but surely putting the pieces back together. With the war over, it's the boring stuff that remains in the aftermath. Housing, food, security, rebuilding. It's not flashy, but someone has to make sure it's going well. The people call for the King of Victoria, the Exemplars call for their leader, and Vina, for the first time in her life, feels the crushing weight of governance upon her shoulders. From the black market activities of Allerdale to the scheming of the Dukes of Victoria, Vina's rule is challenged from all sides right from the jump, and she is forced to make tough decisions, punishing her friend Allerdale, punishing a soldier that stole the size of kings, and disbanding her own private army, all to make Londinium a better place to live after the war, and it crushes her spirit. As Vina continues down the path of leadership, even her friends in Glasgow leave her behind. They can no longer bear the weight that has fallen upon them, and Vina is left alone to carry her burden. Ending a grand overture might be the end to the story of the Glasgow gang, but it is the beginning of the story of Vina's rule. And that is a story we are probably not going to see much of for the time being. Mainly cause I imagine the community would riot if we keep getting stories set in Victoria. There is a bit of a dilemma with this event, unrelated to the events of the story, but related to the Victoria crisis itself. While technically a completed arc by the time this event was released, there were still a few loose ends we didn't know about, primarily the cleanup of the remaining Sarkaz forces. For the most part, I think it did a pretty good job handling the whole thing. They couldn't really touch on the Teresa stuff just yet, so clouding the final battle with mysteries allows them to avoid committing to Act 3 reveals too early. It was, however, this event that revealed fully the death of Nes Salem, although it was strongly hinted at in the Nymph event, and people were not too happy about it. All I'm saying is, bro is starving Victorian child level, and we will discuss it further in the See You Soon event. Portatori de Velluti takes us back to the wonderful land of Siracusa on a Lapland-themed adventure. With a year having passed since Il Siracusano, Vigil and Penance have turned Nova Valenci into a wonderful city, free from the open interference of the mafia families. Although of course, nothing is that simple. Beneath the surface, the families plot their return to open rule, while the little guy is just trying to earn their paycheck. It's in that chaos that two individuals return to Siracusa, one seeking vengeance and the other seeking a grand performance. Vulpes Foglia, aka Ingrid, has returned to Siracusa to find the man who infected her daughter Suzerain. It's a rather compelling motivation, as you can imagine, just from me describing it. Lapland, now in control of Zaro, has returned to see the culmination of the Signori de Lupi's game, and she intends to use the first anniversary of Nova Volsini to test if the city has truly moved past the families. But if you thought that was all this event would tackle, you would be wrong, because our beloved Crown Slayer is here too. No longer the easily bullyable mini-boss of Reunion, she has pursued Project Red to avenge her mentor, to poor results, and now spends her time working with the Nova Volsini truck drivers, where she is inevitably going to get roped into mafia business and the game of the wolves. For the most part, Ingrid and Crown Slayer have pretty compelling stories, while Lapland is here purely to aura farm. At the very least, the event gave us the Lapland unemployed meme, so she has that going for her. Also, Texas is back in Siracusa. No, she doesn't do anything except pad the event with a familiar face. Also, why the fuck is Giovanna still alive? This is my own grudge with Il Siracusano, and I will make it this event's problem too, even if it is overall better than the previous event. Exodus from the Pale Sea is a look into Iberia without the Abyssal Hunter's involvement. Life isn't so sweet when you can't just brute force your way through all your problems. Towns' adventure into the Pale Sea introduces us to several really interesting characters, primarily Juana, Pascula, and Anastasio. Juana is a hardened pirate that has spent a century on the waves before transitioning to the salt flats following the profound silence. She's rather cutthroat in her actions, but it masks the caring motherly figure beneath. She is a treat, and I hope we see more of her in the future as a playable unit. Pascula, or Operator Rosalt, is fantastic. Her personality on the surface is one of a yes man, sucking up to everyone around her, so she's treated well, which contrasts her true thoughts, which are less than flattering. She also has a great relationship with Elysium, and their back and forths were super enjoyable to read. Anastasio shows us a very different side to the Inquisition, one that we were only really told about before. With Irene and her mentor Dario being our introduction to the faction, the fear they inspired in the population was contrasted by their method of upholding justice. With restraint and appropriate uses of force, the two painted a very positive picture of the organization. Anastasio, however, is not this. No, Ro is everything wrong with giving someone unlimited power. Cruel and vindictive, he pursues his quarries far past the point of necessity, radicalizing civilians into fanatics to hunt down the impure. Even other inquisitors are not safe from the sin he wishes to purge. Rip Silver, you are a guy of all time. He makes a fantastic file for Thorns, as both are burdened by the sins of their mentors. Thorns gave him alchemy, which is an illegal originium art. Anastasios instilled in him the need to punish sinners to absolve him of his own sins. Honestly, you should read the event just for Anastasio alone. It's not crazy to say that. He is very compelling as antagonists go, and considering his ending, maybe we see Bone now. Such is the joy of our reunion is the latest story in the Sui siblings story saga, and signals the end of the quest against Sui. Regardless of if the next event casts Sui down or not, it's clear the endgame is in sight. With that said, this event is not so much about fighting dragon gods, but about fighting something much worse. Hunger. Fear and hunger. Not really, but it's about food. Primarily, how food can bring people together. Lazy has brought Blaze to the capital of Yan, Baizhou, to find out the truth about the death of her father. And to make sure she remains undetected, she's in that Yanni's fit. Still find it super funny that people thought that a white girl was getting a little Chinese, only to learn she has always been Chinese. Regardless, her journey into Baizhou allows her to meet Jing Shu. Who is this woman that I have just mentioned? She's Blaze's sister. Well, technically, that's not true. Blaze's mother was once a high-ranking member of the court, but due to the assassination of the last true Long of Yan, she had to take the downfall to ensure stability in the country. As such, Jing Shu's father took her child and fled Yan. Although, due to shenanigans that you can learn about by reading the event, Jing Shu was left behind. It's quite a compelling storyline between the two. Lazy also gets to have a bit of character development, which is nice. Considering her introduction in Chapter 6, it's quite a glow up. She even leaves the Tianxi Bureau during this event, so she's no longer a Fed. The Sui also have some very good stuff. As per usual, they are primarily there to enable character development. Yu is a fun character. He doesn't take kindly to Blaze insulting his cooking, and despite a rocky start, teaches her to make noodles. Not a major achievement, but it ensures that Blaze gets an audience with the true Long, so that's a W. He also gets to meet with Wang, the primary antagonist of the Sui saga, at least until we learn his full motivation and potentially face off with Sui proper. I'm sure he'll end up being a cool dude. The two share a nice meal together, where Yu reveals his dream of one day preparing a dinner for all his siblings, which honestly is setting up for a final send-off for the siblings once all the Sui stuff is finished. Also, Chen is here. She will certainly not be relevant in a future Sui event. She's just here to aura form, which I can respect. See you soon is the introduction to the lovely vampire Antalakia and the second event focusing on the Victoria crisis since it ended. Technically, she appeared in Ending a Grand Overture 2, but that was just for one scene, so this event really introduces us to her. She's rather disappointing as a banner unit. Not cause there's anything wrong with her, but this event is focused on several different characters, so she only has a little bit of spotlight on her. Unlike Ending a Grand Overture, which focused on wrapping up the Glasgow gang stuff, this one focuses on putting a bow on the other plotlines as well as setting up for a few other stories. Reed and Ablana finish up their business in Victoria before returning to Terra for their own event. Noel gets some closure on his little subplot. Tallulah, Chen, and Nine are getting out of Victoria before Tallulah starts another rebellion. They are Ursus bound, so that's going to be a story soon. Tallulah playable, trust. Entelekia finally answers the question posed by her existence in Ending a Grand Overture by telling us that she's here because of the leader of her organization being spotted in Londinium. Nesalam also gets his send-off too, deciding that since his war is over, he shall buy time for Teresis to complete his plans. This is Chapter 15 setup, so even in his send-off, more important things are in motion. Even the Masses Travels gets some setup, as during the exodus of the Sarkaz, Amia, while defending the retreating Sarkaz, connects with the law and speaks with the Pope about the upcoming disaster. So yeah, this event is setup upon setup and probably should have come out when Ending a Grand Overture did. It would have avoided some unnecessary criticisms sent that event's way, although the same could be said of Nymph's event. I'm gonna be honest, if there was any event I would skip this year, it's probably this one, or Fantasy in the Mirage. Although at least this one has a section where Amiya and Teresa's are form, so it's always going to have that going for it. When Elegies or Ashes tells the finale of the Dublin storyline, and it's done in a rather interesting way. As you may notice, these CGs look a little different to others. That's cause this event is told in the form of a story. A former member of Dublin attempts to write down the events of the incident within Nasushi, and is helped by one not-so-dead dragon. As such, much of what happens in the event is metaphor, and I think it works really well. By telling it this way, many characters can be left out without actually being forgotten by the narrative. They simply weren't recorded in the tale of the Red Dragon of Dublin. And speaking of the one and only Red Dragon of Dublin, Reed was fantastic this event. Her and Ablana have a fascinating, if deeply unhealthy relationship. From Reed's desire for peace, to accepting the responsibility of leadership for the sake of her people, she is a story worth telling. Ablana too is interesting, and due to the nature of the event being a fable, we truly don't understand her perspective fully. Don't get me wrong, we know why she did what she did, and how she planned to absolve her sister of all wrongdoing, but we don't get a true deep dive into her thoughts on the whole situation. The closest we get is her putting the thoughts of the storyteller together for him. It keeps her a bit mysterious, although her hiding away on Rhodes Island was certainly a decision of all time. Surely, nothing bad will come of it in the future. Well, considering that Tara and Victoria are both run by Rhodes Island operators, I'm actually pretty sure, for the most part, it'll be fine. I do hope we get more events told in this style going forward, because I really like the art style the CGs gave us, and I want to see it replicated in more events. I just think it would be neat. Also, shout out to the GOAT, Geeky Retiel? I hope I pronounced that right, for the ungodly amounts of comments they left on my Dublin Did Nothing Wrong video. They did this for 81 straight days. Truly GOAT activity, if there ever was some. Dissociative Recombination, or Chapter 15, is perhaps the best story of the year. It's certainly in the top 3 at least. It's also probably my second favourite main story chapter. Fully putting the Victoria crisis to bed, Act 3 moves past how Originium affects the people of Terra and how Originium affects the history of those most affected by Originium. Now it's time for how Originium has affected the very existence of Terra. With the creator of Originium taking center stage as the primary antagonist of the story, Priestess makes an almighty first impression. Taking on Teresa's and Rhodes Island, her undeniable strength is clear for all to see. Even the pillar of Rhodes Island, Calcit, was no match for her. The Doctor and Amiya have more than met their match and will require plenty of help in overcoming this existential threat. As much as I enjoyed Act 2, I certainly appreciate the change in direction. I'm sure by the time we have spent 9 chapters in this act, I'll be excited for a potential Act 4, even if Act 3 is amazing. With the loss of Rhodes Island's landship, our cast of heroes is in the most precarious position they have ever been in, even if Vina has a spare landship ready for them at a moment's notice. Munster becoming an operator was certainly a bold choice, but completely killing off Calcit probably wasn't in the cards, although it will certainly lower the threat level of Priestess if/when she comes back. Hirda is also a very interesting character to introduce. It is a bit reductive, but she is the Amiya equivalent for Priestess. Although considering that even Priestess acknowledges this, it is an acceptable comparison. I am sure her cult will be very interesting when they eventually become relevant in the future main story chapter. Now, you might think that with all this Priestess glaze, this means I have switched up on my GOAT. This is untrue. Theresis will always remain on top, regardless of whether he's dead or not. He's coming back to life, by the way. You can mark my words on this. I will found the Thesis Copium Society in preparation for his return. The game will hit EOS and I will still be saying Thesis is coming back in Enfield, because my agenda will never die. The Masses Travel is of course JRPG maxing, and is another event that stands at the peak of Arknights storytelling. The Masses Travels is the finale of the Laterano storyline, and what an ending it is. With Exusii, Monster, and the Doctor coming to the Holy Land to prevent the next disaster instigated by Priestess, we are greeted by plenty of shenanigans. Having overridden the law to spread Originium across Terra, Laterano is plunged into religious fervor as a new sect emerges. From within the Shrine of Nativity, the Matriarch spreads this new doctrine to all of Laterano, with all those who enter the Holy City falling under this illusion. It is in this madness where the angels who will overthrow God begin their rebellion. Exusii is of course the primary instigator of this change. leading the way to salvation through acts of domestic terrorism. Although if you have read The Master's Travels, you would know that the true MVP of this and all other Laterano events is none other than Anduin. Federico is holding the coveted silver medal for reference. The Mordor has one of the most compelling character arcs of any Arknight's character in this or any other event. From fervent believer to sinner who will strike down God, should that be the only path to true salvation. And I say will and not would there, cause the madman pulls it off, with a little help from Federico. Overall, the story of Laterano is the story of fate. Fate is challenged or reinforced in this event by every character. From the matriarch introducing a new sect of Lateran fate, to Ixusiai's fate in the dream of Laterano. Even Priestess and the Doctor have to place their fate in external forces, with Priestess placing her fate in the law to complete her goal of assimilating Terra, and the Doctor placing his fate in the people of Terra to overcome Priestess without them. And even in the face of their religion being proven false, many within Laterano still hold to their fate. Even Anduin, who has abandoned Laterano forever, continues to live by his fate in the end. My final message, read this event. Following up The Master's Travels was always going to be a tough act, but I think Act or Die does an admirable job. Is it perfect? No, but it does tell a compelling story. A film crew is trapped on a Rankwood studio plate in the Barrens of Columbia. Joy, confusion, fear, anger, and hatred take control of the production, with the Blood Diamond taking center stage of the drama. With the Troop Master setting this absurd tragedy into motion with their pen, it is up to Lucien to resolve the situation without too many casualties. And for the most part, he does a pretty good job, although quite a few people do die. He even kills one himself. Not that he's at fault for most of them, that would be Moira. Moira, as you can probably guess, is incredibly mentally unwell. A seemingly ordinary woman who, due to a coincidental meeting with Tragodia, became a serial killer. Lucien even comments on how the Troop Master speaks of her in the same way he speaks of him. Her ability to bring about the tragedy the Troop Master was searching for shouldn't be understated, as if not for Lucien's arriving on the film plate, everyone on it would have died. I think this event is definitely worth reading as a standalone story. You don't even need to really know anything about the Crimson Troop to enjoy it, although that would probably be a bit of a good knowledge base to have. It is also the last proper event story of 2025, as the next two events are a short story event and an IS expansion. A second Sui-focused event? In this economy? Times must be truly tough. Fantasy in the Mirage takes us back to Yan one more time this year. Following Lazy, who has left her girlfriend Blaze behind to take care of some Sui-related shenaniganry. Much like how Nymph's event set the stakes for IS-5, this does the same for IS-6. And if I say so myself, does it a little bit worse. I did like this event, don't get me wrong, but it is far more episodic than Nymph's event, and it does in my mind suffer for it. Both events tell a satisfying story to get us to our next IS installment, but unlike Nymph's, this one lacks the same narrative weight between each section, feeling like it's jumping around to key points of a story rather than telling one from point A to B. If you read this event, that's probably a conclusion you share as well. Despite that, the event did give us quite a few great moments, like the showdown between Lazy and the rampaging Delivering Blade, or the battle between Huai Tianpei and the Shadow of Shou. Yi is, much like the other Sui siblings, a very interesting concept of a character, and really lives up to the disconnected nature of his existence. Wanting nothing more than to improve the quality of his garden allows him to connect with humans who could bring value to his home. Even should he fail to get that which he desires from them, he still values those humans who pique his interest. And, at the end of the event, even invites a few of those interesting humans into his home to help placate the restless Sui, leading us directly into IS-6. Sui's Garden of Grotesqueries, aka IS-6, is, as the name would imply, the 6th expansion of the Integrated Strategies game mode, and as far as I can tell, one that most people seem to be quite unhappy with. Yes, I did copy and paste the IS-5 opening onto this one with a few minor tweaks. While the event has proven itself to have hands by putting your boy on fraud watch unlike other integrated strategies, its story currently leaves a bit to be desired from me. While all the endings are fully canon in this one, none of the 3 we currently have are all that interesting for those not steeped in the Sui sibling sauce. After all, the entire point of the event is to placate Sui and prevent it from running amok, which is achieved in the first ending, where our trio, Lazy, Zoale, and Record Keeper, best Yi's assistant Liang and succeed in placating the mighty dragon god through their actions. In the second ending, the trio end up running into the remnants of Sui and do battle with the dragon. Emerging victorious, the trio realize that the dragon was not Sui at all, but that which remains of the dead Sui sibling Jie. The trio have found the ink stick of Jie, which is only still in existence due to being within Yi's garden. This is big news for Yi, as it is all that remains of her, and he intends to write down her forgotten past using this tool. Finally, the third ending features Wang. Somehow the trio find themselves within the tomb of Sui, and Wang is not pleased with being interrupted, so they do battle. Wang almost kills them, but Yi rescues the trio at the last minute. The two brothers share a moment together, with Wang confessing his guilt over the loss of their sister. He got her killed, after all, by attempting to kill Sui. Now he intends to right that wrong by striking down Sui and bringing her back. Through the ink that was found in Ending 2, the brothers may be able to restore her to life, which is where the story of IS-6 sits right now. Not as hype moments and aura as IS-5, but still it's good stuff, if you like the Sui anyway. It is kinda giving me the impression they want to wrap up the Sui stuff in the next Chinese New Year event, cause why else reveal all this new stuff about Jie and Wang right now? I wouldn't even say I'm the biggest fan of the Sui sibling storyline, but I don't want them to rush this, just to wrap it up. Maybe some of the Sui are on Talos 2, and they want to have the Sui storyline kinda put to bed so that they can justify having a Nian on Talos 2 in Enfield, but that is just some baseless speculation right now. Also, just because I feel like it needs to be mentioned, why is Raidian even a part of this event? Like, yes, I get it, she's a very popular operator, and people want her to be playable, but she's not relevant at all, and is just fan service to kind of hype up this event with her. Like, if the Sui sibling storyline is ending anyway, why not just drop Yi as part of Sui's Garden of Grotesqueries, because it is his garden. It would make complete sense. I'm sure some people would still be mad about his Sui sibling being playable outside of Chinese New Year, but fuck it. Drop in Nian Alter instead of Yi, because Nian's kinda outdated, and also, come on, if you're going to be revealing all the Sui anyway, you might as well drop the unit. And that, my friends, is my vague and rambly look back at the events of 2025. I didn't want to make a tier list because I didn't really want to rank them, and also I'm kinda just bored of tier lists as a format, not even from me doing tier lists because I've only made like 2 of them. It's just that I'm not a big fan of tier lists as a format for talking about stories. And yes, this is entirely because I would find the topic boring if I saw a tier list about it. But you know what? I'll probably get less views than my tier list video from last year, so what do I know? This video is way delayed as it is, and I want to get it out before Hoshigume's event comes out, so we're going to cut it off here. Shout out to the many wonderful members of the factory. There is no joke. You are just beautiful. Y'all, be good people, and I will see you in the next one. I'm not gonna lie to you, I had a thought about making a tier list video and I would just be ranking all the events, but the first letter of the event's name would decide what tier it goes into. I decided it just was not worth people getting mad at me over my shitty idea, so I was just like, fuck it, we're just gonna not do that.